Greetings, History 141 students. Professor Fia here. I'm with producer extraordinaire Megan Piet behind the camera. Welcome back to the virtual office hours. We have lecture. We had lecture, I should say, on Friday. Well, again, by the time you watch this, that the day won't really matter. But the last lecture that we talked about was actually Professor Snyder's lecture on the Southern economy. I remember I lectured on the northern economy and the market economy and the development of an infrastructure and the way economics feeds into this growing sense of nationalism. Then the parallel lecture came from Professor Snyder about the southern economy. As you think about and try to process that lecture, obviously you want to see the very, very close relationship between cotton and slavery, the rise of the cotton economy, and of course the role that the cotton gin plays in allowing this kind of short staple cotton to move inland. So cotton, because of the cotton gin, cotton becomes more mobile, can move inward. Slavery thus becomes more mobile and can move inward. And you begin to see the growth of what we call an internal slave trade as the cotton plantations, the cotton economy begins to move into the Gulf Coast and even into parts of the old Louisiana territory. And of course, later on in the course, we'll look at the debates over the spread of not only cotton, but particularly the spread of slavery in those eras. So when you think about the cotton gin, I always like to, I don't know if Professor Snyder mentioned this or not, but when you think about the cotton gin, this new development in technology that's supposed to bring about all kinds of new and positive things, in many ways it's the cotton gin, a new piece of technology that actually enhances slavery in the early republic, or in the years leading up to the Civil War. Also realize that in the South, because of the cotton and slave economy, there's going to be a very unique social structure that develops. Hopefully Professor Snyder said that not everybody in the South was like a plantation owner, like Gone with the Wind. Most of the people in the South were either small slave-holding families, or the majority actually did not own slaves at all. They were yeoman farmers. So make sure you go back and look at those, the way we sort of talked about the social structure. And then I think what's important as well is you begin to see, with the rise of cotton and slavery, you begin to see a unique Southern way of life beginning to emerge, and arguments to sustain that Southern way of life. That Southern way of life is, first of all, going to be driven by a resistance to high tariffs, because remember, high tariffs are always going to protect Northern manufacturers as opposed to Southern cotton owners. So there's a concern in the South that these tariffs, these government tariffs, are going to benefit the North. That Southern way of life is going to be driven by this constitutional argument made by John Calhoun of South Carolina that slaves are property, and the Fifth Amendment says you can take your property with you wherever you go, so you can take your slaves wherever you go. I mean, it's a very, very strong, if not and powerful, constitutional argument that we're going to see coming up later on in the course as well. And then, of course, there's going to be a very, very strong pro-slavery argument that we'll talk about in the next video, based upon the Bible, based upon the social order, and so forth. So that is, one more thing I should add is also then these debates are going to come about the spread of slavery in the new territories especially. So Professor Snyder talked about the Compromise of 1820, or the so-called Missouri Compromise, in which Missouri comes in slave and Maine comes in as a free state, thus balancing the Senate in terms of representation of slave versus free states. This is going to be one of the defining events of the next 30 years. How are we going to bring new states into the Union, and are those states going to be slave or free? We see it for the first time in the Missouri Compromise, as Southerners looking to defend that way of life want to bring slavery into these new territories and eventual new states. So again, look at that Southern lecture that Professor Snyder gave as a parallel lecture to the North. Who knows, maybe someday I may ask you to compare and contrast the two, but I think it's important that you at least understand this kind of cotton slave culture and all the implications of that for the development of the South in the years prior to the Civil War. See you next time.